Most anticipated signing thus far, Zach Edwards. Where was the Magic Man going? We knew he wasn't returning back to Barcelona. Will he even return back to the ELF? Well, this guy's going to Paris. He's teaming up.
We doing everything they talk about. You know I'm everything a boss about. Not putting work and gotta toss them out. I'm really biting, they just barking out. I'm really riding, they just parking now. His street, what to talk about. See the big H when I'm...
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Base Coverage presented by our partners over at Knoah Teamwear. I'm your host, Jamal Clay, and I got a special one for you today. Today, we're going to talk conference realignment, and we want to talk a little bit about the scheduling for next year. We want to talk about the potential of the conference that has been swarming around ELF media. I got some ideas of what the season should look like if the ELF wants to take my advice into consideration. And there's just been so much signings going on. It's been hard for me to keep up. So I'm going to go through a couple of them and give you my quick thoughts. You can also find some of the signings listed below in the ticker of some of the news that's been breaking during the week. It's been a fun week so far. This has been the most exciting week in the offseason with, all the signings, all the quarterbacks, teams are starting to form together. It's picking up pace. So it's definitely getting exciting. But before we get into all that, don't forget, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, like the video, share with a friend. I appreciate your support, and I like talking ball with you guys. And I do appreciate everyone who has been tuning in. Now, again, before we get into my ideas for conference realignment, the season thoughts, and the signings, here's a quick word from our partners over at Knoah Teamwear. All right, well, welcome back. As I mentioned before, the first thing I want to dive into is some of the latest signings that have been going on. I got my phone here because it's hard for me to keep up with everything that's been going on. So I'm gonna give you a couple of quick thoughts on, my opinion of some of the signings that's been happening on. So first one we got Goran Zek, leaving Rostov Panthers, transferring over to the Stuttgart Surge. The Surge and Jordan Newman in that new era, they get one of the top DBs in the ELF last year. Great signing, great start. He's going to have the opportunity to work with a good friend of mine, Cody, who's handling the defensive backs for the Surge. So that's a great start for that defense. On top of that, they've also signed Riley Hennessy. And Riley Hennessy is someone that is familiar with Jordan Newman, played for the Schwäbisch Unicorns, led them to the GFL championship. Now he's coming into the ELF, looking to do the same thing. He has a good start. He has a good group of receivers to start with Lewis Geyer and Jan Meyer signing with the Surge. Let's see who else the Surge put together to join them. But Surge off to a good start, and we've been hearing that Jordan Newman's a great recruiter. So we'll see how that continues to boil over. Next, we got the Ryan Fire. Hey, they're bringing back the gang, and they're sticking with people they know. They're re-signing Harlan Kofi. They're re-signing Nathaniel Robitaille, keeping that receiver group strong for Jadrian Clark. The Ryan Fire are just strong, and I say in the sense that they have the chemistry. Those guys play together, but even some of the guys that they've been bringing in with Alejandro Fernandez or Florence Simon or Morris Kinsey from Cologne, they've been able to put a good, solid group of guys together, re-sign Lamar Williams. So Ryan Fire may not be super splashy, but they are making some great signings. Leipzig Kings, AJ Wentland, the leader of that defense, along with William James, returning back as the second year part of a 2-year contract. Looks like they'll be returning back to the Kings, and we'll see what they continue to do on offense. The big thing for the Kings last year was, their lack of production on offense, the amount of turnovers that they had, their offensive line. So we'll see what they're going to do there in that aspect of it. That's going to be the most important side of it. But bringing back those guys on defense is only going to strengthen that defense, especially in the conference that they're in, because I like to call it the black and blue conference. You got to buckle up and make sure you're ready to strap up and hit somebody week in, week out whenever you're playing in the North. But the big thing for Leipzig is what they're going to do on offense. So we're going to continue to monitor that. Next, who we got? Offensive Rookie of the Year, Marco Schneider, returning back to the Raiders. No surprise here. I expect Adrian Platzgummer to return back too. They've also just signed wide receiver from the GFL, Jarvis McClam. Now, this is interesting for the simple fact that they had a strong receiver group, right? And they were one of the teams that had an American running back or went with a quarterback running back duo. But now they're bringing in an American receiver. I checked out his highlights, very versatile. You can use him on jet sweeps, you can use him in the backfield. So it interests me for the fact that it was already somewhat of a crowded wide receiver group, hence the fact that Yannick went to Stuttgart. So now you bring in another receiver. It's going to be interesting to see what their offensive philosophy is, whether it's, a heavy 10 personnel, one back, 0 tight ends, 4 receivers, and just spread the ball. We're all going to see who their quarterback is going to be. So it'll be interesting. But, the Raiders have been a solid team, one of the most decorated teams of all Europe. So I have no questions. It's just interesting their philosophy that they're going to go in. A couple more we'll dive into. Vikings have a quarterback, Chris Heidebig, or Heelbig, leaving the Potsdam Royals, going to Vienna. The Frankfurt Galaxy basically signed Tony Anderson and Joachim Liggins from from the Raiders, bringing them over to Frankfurt for that backfield, that defensive backfield. Frankfurt's been a team that's always went 2 Americans at the DB, so there's no surprise there. I guess it's interesting in the 2 guys that they went for, or why the Raiders couldn't re-sign those guys there. Tim Haney, welcome back home, baby. Signed with the Helvetic Guards, probably one of the biggest signings for the Guards this offseason. It was very, very important to get Tim back to Switzerland, and they were able to do that and accomplish that. So kudos to them. Prague, they signed a pair of receivers, and they have a quarterback, Josef Janota. I hope I pronounced that right. Shav Mumphrey. And then they re-signed Lucas Kadlik. Listen, I'm a bona fide, certified, bad at pronouncing names, so I apologize, but looks like they re-signed some of their own guys. And, Shaz, we had the opportunity to almost play each other in Switzerland. He went to Geneva before COVID. Now he's back with Prague. So the Lions have their quarterback. And a lot of teams are starting to come into play here. So just a couple more. Lucas Horvat returns to the Vikings. Joshua Paznowski returns back to Frankfurt, which is good. I'm interested to see how he's going to perform off injury. And then the most anticipated signing thus far, Zach Edwards. Where was the Magic Man going? We knew he wasn't returning back to Barcelona. Would he even return back to the ELF? Well, this guy's going to Paris. He's teaming up with 2 of his teammates, Kyle Sweet last year, Mr. Triple Crown, Remy Bertolini, who he had his first year. So Paris is building a strong team. Definitely one of the biggest signings this whole offseason in the whole league. And we're gonna see how this plans out. But everyone's wondering where Zach went. Zach's going to Paris. And then lastly, Donovan Easom, signs with the Berlin Thunder. This was a easy signing for Berlin. You keep the guy who played in GFL in Berlin for the Adler. And now he's signing with the Thunder. Knows territory, knows everything. Berlin didn't waste any time this offseason. They got their guys. They knew who they wanted. They signed them. Now they're ready for 2023. So good for Berlin in that aspect of it. All right. Yeah, so I'm not gonna go through all of these because again, it was a lot. It was a lot in terms of what's been going on. Just some of the quick thoughts I wanted to share with you guys. Now, let's get into conference realignment and scheduling ideas. So I want to give a shout out to one of my followers, Bosses United on YouTube. And again, you can subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, and we'll talk it out. So during one of my shows, he gave me an idea to talk about what the conference realignment will look like, but also what the season will look like. So, and then recently this week, ELF Network had reported potentially what the conferences should look like, and it seems like everything's pointing towards this direction. So the idea that I have the idea that I got from Bosses United was 3 conferences, 6 teams, obviously. But when it comes to the regular season, we talked about a 12-game regular season, right? Home and away, each team. And then you get 2 non-conference games, 1 home, 1 away, right? Makes sense. That seems very likable there. The intent of the 12-game season, which is the part I like the most, would be to extend the playoffs. And we want more teams in the playoffs. Maybe get 6 teams and the first 2 teams get buys. All right. That's from what I'm hearing, that's what a lot of people want versus just a 4-team. So I kind of like the idea of, you're dropping 2 weeks because we went to 14 games last year. Hopefully next year, maybe 12 games. You play each team twice and you get 1 home and 1 away non-conference game. I like that. Now let's talk about the conferences and what's been swarming around ELF media, all right? Let's start with the North, all right? We have the two-time, defending champions of the North Conference and ELF runner-up with the Hamburg Sea Devils. We would have the strongest fan base in all of Europe in the Rhine Fire. We will have the Berlin Thunder, who's been on a hot start in the North as well. Rustlaw Panthers returning. It keeps the Hamburg and the rivalry together. Cologne would be joining the North along with the Rhine Fire. And then we would have the Leipzig Kings staying in the North as well, keep the battle between them and Rustlaw. So that would be the North. All right, as we go to and look at the Central, we will have the defending champs, Vienna Vikings, Skull. And then we will have the Raiders. Of course, we can't have one without the other. So we will have the Raiders, Swarco. We will have the season 1 champs, Frankfurt Galaxy, which was the Central Conference last year. We have the Stuttgart Surge, part of the new regime, and then they'll be joined by 2 teams. All right, the Prague Lions, make some noise, and then the Anthroners of Hungary. And then what I like about that is that you keep the CFL championship, which could be a potential ELF rivalry with the Lions and the Anthroners. And then we go to the South, probably the most beautiful division, because you got Barcelona, your favorite team's favorite team. We got the Munich Ravens, who will be joining. You got Paris, who will be joining, the most anticipated ELF team. You got the Helvetic Guards, which is a question in terms of a team that guys are most interested in terms of how they pan out, but it looks like they're doing a good job with their signings. You got the Milano Seamen, and then you got the Istanbul Rams. All right, so 3 conferences, 6 teams in each conference, 12 regular season games. You play home and away, each team, and then you have 1 out-of-conference game, or you have 2 out-of-conference games, 1 home, 1 away. I kind of like that format. All right, now some quick thoughts. The North will continue to be the black and blue division. That is, I look at that division, for those who know AFL or NFL, it's similar to the AFC North with, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Browns, the Bengals, in terms of hard-hitting, smash mouth, ground and pound football. So that would be my thoughts on the North. It continues to be black and blue division, and you add the Rhine Fire and Cologne to that mix. And you look at the Central. The Central, as of right now, currently constituted, would be the most talented group in terms of quarterbacks. You have the champions of the Vikings, who have Chris Heilbig. You got the Raiders, who are still looking for a quarterback. Frankfurt Galaxy re-signed Jacob Sullivan to a 3rd year. Stuttgart, bringing their guy from Schwäbisch Hall and Riley Hennessy. Prague Lions signed my guy Shaz Mumphrey. And then you got the Enthroners, who brought in Gabriel Cunningham. Wow. You talk about a division where, you get a whole different type of personalities when it comes to quarterback position. That's what lies in the Central. And then in the South, this is probably the most beautiful division, because you go to Barcelona, you go to Munich, you go to Paris, and not to mention you go to Switzerland, Milan, and Istanbul to play the Rams. So that's probably the most diverse in terms of travel conference that we will have. Now, I'm not going to sit here and rule out the South like most people did last year, including myself, because we all thought that was going to be the weakest conference. When it turns out halfway through the season, that was one of the most exciting and most interesting conferences to watch. Ultimately, Cologne stalled out after that Barcelona game. The Rams were the Rams were the Rams in terms of like who they were in the record. So really it was just the Rhine Fire in Barcelona, and Ryan almost made a playoff push, making the quarterback change mid-season. Barcelona makes a playoff push, becomes the most exciting team to watch in 2022, and now we have the South again. So I'm not going to rule it out. I need to see how things plan out, but the South would be the most interesting, especially in terms of travel too. So keep that in mind. So that's all I have. Let me know what you guys think. Which conferences do you like? Thoughts on the season structure? Who's potentially winning the offseason so far? Do these teams and conferences make sense? Talk to me. Let's chop it up. Let's see how things are going. Again, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, drop a comment, like this video, and we'll talk some more. Till next time.
Nobody. Hard work, they don't know about it. Hard work, they don't know about it. Hard work, they don't know about it.